thanks for taking the time this morning, this afternoon, whenever you're watching this, to speak with us. Today we've got Ian Dolby. Not any relation to Thomas Dolby, are you?
Nope. No. Wish I
That'd be
was.
kind of nice. Have a little bit of sound money in
Yeah.
your pocket.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess let's begin with you're located in southwestern Michigan, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Where are you servicing?
So where do I service? So I typically try to stay within about an hour of St. Joseph, Michigan, which
Mhm.
is just off of the lake, about 30 minutes north of the Indiana border. But then I will also go further out depending on the project, basically. So I'll go to Detroit and Indianapolis and so forth. So yeah.
That's it's interesting. So, how long have you been an inspector?
I think it's got to be about 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why I like and I chose this conversation because you came to one of our 3 day introduction to
Yeah.
commercial classes,
Yeah.
and you had a story of your background's not construction and your background is not inspections, correct?
Well, it's not inspections, but if you go back far enough, there's lots of construction in there. There's lots of real estate. There's lots of everything in there. Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
trouble with gray hair, right?
Isn't it though? So if you go back to the probably the late 90s, I had a GC license in construction. I had a broker's license in real estate when you had to be in real estate for at least, I think it was 2 to 3 years before you were even allowed to apply for a broker's license. So I had those things in order to, well, before flipping, it was renovating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was renovating my own houses. First of all, I got into real estate, then realized I didn't enjoy the real estate aspect of it as much as far as just the general public aspect. And so I started to renovate my own houses. In order to do that, I could do more on my own if I got a GC license. So I got a GC license so that I could meet with whatever permitting approval type processes and stuff like that. And so I had that in the 90s from being in the States. Before that, in the UK, of course, messing around ever since I was a kid in construction and groundworks, mainline sewers, just everything. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah.
I know we're bounce around a little bit.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the UK. Obviously,
Yeah.
let's throw let's open up the that cat of or bag of
Yeah.
cats. Your accent is not Southwest Michigan.
No,
How, how long have you been
cl
in the States?
closer to Boston. So I've been in the States since 92.
92.
Yeah.
92. And you talked about your GC license and you talked about your real estate license, but you came to me a few years ago, said you had a different background that
Oh
would
yeah.
be beneficial to our members. What was that?
So let's see. I had been a senior managing director for an investment bank that dealt with mergers and acquisitions and capital raises. And so from that aspect, I understood on the commercial side of things, I understood the client base a little different, at least on the larger type of commercial type projects. So where I think the people that I was traditionally seeing in the inspection side on the residential or the commercial side, typically most had a some form of construction background. And then when I was sitting in one of the classes, I think it was with Lance on cost to cure, where it was getting into more of the financial planning aspects and so forth. Um, my background, it made perfect sense to me as far as the language and just the conversations about the how and the what and the whys, that somebody would be using the financial data and analysis versus just looking at the construction, because one without the other on a large commercial basis anyway doesn't really mean anything.
So what's been your experience then since having that secret language? What's been your experience so far with translating that into the commercial side?
It's um, it doesn't really. So it's my language with the clients. What I will find is that I can talk to any member of a commercial project in their language.
Hmm.
So that helps me, but because it's a natural thing for me to do, I don't even notice that I'm doing it. It's not a
Okay.
deliberate conversation. It's just, if we have a financial guy, I can talk to him about the financial aspects. If I have a construction guy or a project manager, I can talk to them in that manner. Um, so it's not something that's deliberate. It doesn't. It's just
Okay.
another normal conversation from my
It, it's just it. I
side.
guess it's another arrow in your quiver, right?
It
It's
is. That's all
it's
it is.
it's another
Yeah.
and for so many of our colleagues, that's a tough muscle because so many of the inspectors that I have met come from the trades background
Yeah. Sure.
and
Yeah.
not from the I don't want to say cerebral background, but it's more the analytical and the financial background that they kind of lose the client at that point.
Yeah, and there's also another quiver, right? So because of the history that I've had in many different industries and so forth, which then played well for me when I was in the investment banking world, as also as basically consulting with CEOs and so forth about their various business models. So when I'm also on a commercial project, I also understand with some level of instinct, but I can have a conversation with them about what it is they're trying to achieve with the building. And so I understand how that building fits into what it is that they're actually doing, where this fits into their business plan or, whatever it is. And so from that aspect, then I can also tailor the inspection very easily to fit what they're trying to do next with this building, so that also helps,
So are
So
you
I'm never
finding?
looking at a commercial project just based on going and standing there and looking at the building. That's
Yeah.
never a thing. Yeah.
So are you finding it's been easier for you to create the phone call into victory
Yeah.
because you have that language,
Yes.
or do you think it's just been a neutral case?
No, it's definitely I will win probably 80 plus percent of the things that I quote. And I know that a large portion of that has to do with I'm always talking to whether it's the commercial realtor broker or the actual direct individual that's
Mhm.
running the project. And so I'm always having a conversation with them. It's always a very laid back conversation, just as we're having right now and one of the first things I ask them is, well, tell me what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do with the building? And that's just over the phone in the first conversation. And so I can have that conversation with them up front. And that helps me for sure because it's just a rounded conversation. And they can tell me that they've spoken to other commercial or other inspectors. And then I will win that scenario. So,
Yeah. That's
yeah.
key. So many of us forget that interpersonal skill of listening and tailoring to their needs is how you get the win.
Yeah, so I actually there was a moment when I started to actually um, so I was winning more jobs that I was quoting, a high percentage of the jobs that I would quote. And then as I'm going to say the market started to dilute a little bit, uh, then I was starting to lose more jobs than I was quoting. Because, like in any market, there are people that will do things for less and so forth. So I started to lose more than I was quoting. And so then I had to actually think and basically come up with a different model for how I was actually quoting things. And then it turned me right back into that and winning more than I would lose and stuff. Um,
You
so
want to
yeah,
share what that model is, or
I give,
are you keeping that in your pocket?
well, I give people options basically.
Oh, good.
So yeah, I give people options, and I have standard options that I will do because I know that I have typically clients fall into just a small number of baskets.
Mhm.
No matter what the size of the project is,
Yeah.
they fall into a small number of baskets, and because they have no idea what it costs to have a commercial inspection, because most of the clients will maybe do a commercial inspection once in their lifetime,
Hmm.
and a handful of them over the period of years will do many, right? Those are the large commercial type clients. And so because they don't have any idea about what it costs, they can also get, sticker shock on what it actually would cost to go out there and do it. So in the conversation about tell me what you're trying to do, and they always fit into about one of four baskets. So I'll give them each, I'll quote them all four and let them choose. And so from that aspect, instead of just sending out here's what it costs to inspect the building and you must need it all inspected because everybody does, no. So either way, I win based on whichever basket they will
I think that's
will
brilliant.
quote into.
I think I have been around the country teaching and talking to commercial and property inspectors, and I think you're right. I think so often, first, we're such an emerging industry, correct?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
that our clients don't really understand what great service we have, and then
yeah.
second, it's people like choices.
They love choices. So that goes back again to my prior worlds, right? And so,
Yeah.
everything I do on the commercial side, or on anything to do with the residential commercial, because the model is the same in a lot of respects. The whole company, my whole footprint has been based upon understanding a sales model.
Hmm.
So, from Notepad to website to templates to software to the absolutely everything, to the shirt that I wear, to the pants that I wear, to every tool in my bag, everything has been based around a sales model. So understanding that people like options just is another piece
Yeah.
of fitting into that sales model,
Yeah.
so yeah.
You have to think lineally in any business because if you don't, you're putting up your own personal firewalls that you
Yeah, of course.
almost can't hurdle over.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
that's terrific. I love that idea. I want to go back to a call you gave me, or I don't know, maybe it was an Insta, whatever Insta chat or text you sent. Was it last year? You had an enormous success with work coming from our website.
So I was actually, so it doesn't get any better than this. So I was actually sitting in I think this was again, I think it was in the Cost to Cure class.
Okay.
And I was sitting in there and, a lead came in on my phone and Lance was teaching it. You were there though at the class in the back. And a lead comes into my phone during that class from the CCPIA website, and it was for an inspection in, I think it was Indiana. It was on a steel mill of some kind, or yeah, yeah, steel mill. And so I believe, if I remember rightly, I quoted it while I was there in the class, using again my system, and got the approval while I was in the class for I think it was an $18,000 inspection, and it took me, I'm gonna say 3 days, three days, yeah, a little bit. But yeah, so yeah, that was great. The system works, right? So
Yeah.
CCPIA is awesome. So if we go back to the beginnings, um, to me, commercial inspections it's just another tool in my bag,
Hmm.
just like septic inspections, radon, mold, every single thing. I do everything I can do to get my phone to ring,
Yep.
right? When it rings, I don't want to have to say no. I don't do that.
Yeah.
So for everything that makes sense, I make sure I am, both qualified and capable of doing that. So CCPIA basically took that, large portion then on the commercial side, right? And it took it from being a non-starter to not only is it a starter, it's like I don't worry about it, I don't think about it. Because you were fantastic from the beginning, right? You turn around and would take phone calls and do anything, anything, and I hear that still. Um, but the organization as a teaching tool, as a support tool, is it just allows me to go out and add this really big piece to my to my tool bag. And again, I don't think about it. I mentor, as you probably know, right?
Yeah, I
To
absolutely do, and I hear wonderful things about it. So for those that are listening or watching to this that don't know where St. Joe, Michigan is, it's down there at the 7 o'clock hour of
uh-huh.
Michigan.
Yes, you're going
And
back to the myth.
yeah, yeah, it's over here in the heel of or the wrist portion of the mitten, and you're what 35, 40 minutes north of the Indiana border on a
30
traffic
minutes,
day.
30. Oh yeah, on a traffic day, it's yeah, 45, whatever.
Yeah,
But we are like an hour and a half out of Chicago, right? If you drive around the lake,
yeah,
an hour and a half out of Chicago.
yep. Or if
Yeah.
you got a fast boat, it's 45 minutes across the lake, and you're
Is it? It's
yeah,
60 miles across, you know.
yeah. You gotta get a fast boat.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, you're moving.
I know I can see it when I'm up in the tower. I can
Yeah.
I can see across that. So my I think you're a very good example of the opportunities commercial has because
Yeah.
in Michigan there's no license, correct, for home inspections.
There's no licenses at all. No,
No,
which
no
I'm not a fan
radon,
of.
no home.
No,
It's pretty much wide open. Print a business card. You is one.
you don't need the business card. You just are one. It's that, and that's the standard here. And it's not, I don't believe it's a healthy thing.
No, but
So,
yeah, that's a conversation for big brain people, and I'm a small brain guy. Um, but Indiana's got a fairly rigorous home inspection license.
yeah, so actually Indiana is about the same as it is in Illinois.
Yep.
It's they kind of mirror each other, and sometimes there's reciprocity, and sometimes there isn't,
Hmm.
depending on what the political situation is.
Yes.
And so yes, Indiana has got a good solid base in order to become a home inspector, and you have to be licensed in radon as
Yep.
well there, and that's again another actually good kind of program that they have
Now,
over
are you
there. So
licensed in Indiana?
yeah, so I was licensed in Illinois initially.
Hmm.
I'm still licensed in Indiana in both radon and home and so forth. But
Okay.
again, as yeah, there's nothing here.
Yeah. So, but you
Yep.
are crossing borders
Yeah,
routinely.
I yeah, absolutely every day.
Yeah, I think I think because that's our biggest opportunity I see in commercial with with having this opportunity to work where we want to work. We get to follow that educated client, that client that you
Sure.
worked with in St. Joe,
Yep.
Benton Harbor, um, that whole area there. You cultivated a client, and if they want to buy a building in South Bend, you're going to go do it.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, and of course that happens, and if it's even if it's on a, let's say, a small, whether it's on the residential side or a smaller commercial project, if it is a ways further than I would typically want to drive, I will tell them up front, and I will bid it in, I will quote it into my numbers, and I will tell them up front that that's what I got to do because, but honest to God, they will respect your time. If they want you to come there, they'll turn around and say, I don't care, I want you to do it.
And that's the
Um,
difference between residential and commercial.
I actually get that on the residential as well.
Good for you. Good for
Yeah.
you, because I have found on commercial, it's far less transactional. It's very much relationship.
On the commercial?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, obviously I can't disagree with you, but for me,
Well, you can.
it's no, I mean, because I don't have a basis to disagree on, but what I would tell you is that the commercial jobs that I get literally will come in the same type of manner as my residential. So, I know that for a number of the guys that I talk to on a mentor side on CCPIA, I talk to them on Internachi as well. But on the CCPIA, a number of them are moving into the commercial space or want to be in the commercial space because there is some failure or things are not working out for them on the
Oh,
residential side.
interesting.
So. And some of the conversations I have with them about is, whatever problems you have over there are very likely to follow you over here. So let's figure out how to fix those first.
Yeah.
But so when it comes, so my relationships on it really, they're pretty much the same in that sense. There's not a great deal of difference. There is when you get into so there's also a couple of different types of commercial clients as far as you have Main Street America clients, which are smaller, and a lot of them are very similar in a sense to residential systems and so forth. But then when you get into the larger commercial, the firms basically that actually have they have a chief financial officer, and they have a controller, and they have all these other peoples. That's when it becomes transactional,
Yeah.
because they are
Right.
because they are in the business of hiring people to take care of problems for them. And so you're just another person to come and take care of a problem. Now, do they like being able to call the same person because you took care of it last time? You'll probably take care of it again. Yes. But they are transactional because they are numbers based. So it's not an emotional decision until you get to the owner of the company. And um, then you can go back to there's a level of emotion brought into it, because it's
So
typically
it's
their
kind of funny
dream
because
and
it
stuff.
kind of arcs up
Yeah.
and then it arcs back down again. And if you can break that barrier between the CFO and the chairman of the board,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really a fine line.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
and I like the way you put it. The Main Street client versus the corporate or portfolio
Yeah.
client. I think of I've got the 1 or 2 bay repair garage
Yeah.
that's run by this person or this family. Then they make the jump to the 5 or 6 bay,
Yeah.
and then it's the I've got 9 bays and 27 stores around the country type of place. And each one of those has a different mindset, a different you said it, a different goal, a different thing they're going to get
Yeah.
out of the inspection.
Yeah, for sure. And if you again think about the size and scope of the average business or businesses, going back to my days in the investment banking world, you had the what we'd call the mom and pop stores and so forth in whatever industry, and the type of thinking and the control systems and so forth that they had in place, they would manage typically out of the checkbook and so forth, balance out of the checkbook. But that was $1 million less in revenue, and then between 3 and 5 million, there was a huge change in how a company was structured, and that they needed then to bring in other minds in order to become experts in various aspects, production or whatever it is, financial.
It,
You go above that, and then it changes. The whole client types, changes and stuff. So yeah,
it's a little bit like that book "Good to Great" by
that's a great book.
now
Yeah,
my brain James
yeah. I can never
Collins,
remember
Jim
authors,
Collins
but yeah, but it is a
wrote
great book.
that really talks about those dynamics of what separates something that's good versus something that's great.
Yeah,
I've yeah, my pea brain has a lot of cobwebs in it, but I've read that several times and used that in
yeah,
many classes. Um, so I guess that brings me to your mentoring, and I found that interesting what you just said of some of the mentees that you've talked to are entering commercial because maybe they're having a falling out
yeah,
or a distaste or a uh, lack of passion
for
with
sure.
residential, and so this becomes their parachute. Well, that wasn't the case with you. You
No,
decided you wanted to make commercial and
yeah,
not an or.
yeah, correct.
And and I found it interesting what you just said of if we don't fix your roots of your conditions, they're likely going to manifest or bloom again. It's like picking
Hmm.
weeds.
Yeah.
So what advice have you been given some of your mentees about about change or about adapting?
So I'll end up talking to them, right, about, their residential experience and what's the problems, the failures that are going on over there, what's not working for them. And I will say that, there are some consistent types of challenges, right, that these people's not knowing how to market themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I keep coming back to, and I tell people, if everybody is turning left, go right.
Yeah.
That's what I've done, my whole life, basically, which doesn't mean it's the easiest path,
No.
but it is often, the most rewarding path, right? So, and I tell people up front too, I said, listen, I love whether it's Internachi or CCPIA. I absolutely love them, but it doesn't mean to say I'm going to follow every piece of advice that they give me, right? Because they're talking to the masses. I said, and so, if you have the 80-20 rule, um, if 80% are going over here, if 80% still think you have to go and knock on realtors' doors and you have to do everything to go and bring, romance a realtor and so forth. And then they're looking at which list of this and which list of that. I said, well, the 20% is figuring out the technology that exists today, and Google is your biggest friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to be able to, again, understanding the sales side of life, everything is sales. Absolutely
Yeah.
everything is sales. And so you need to be able to present yourself according to that sales thing, which means that, if you want to get into the, pay per click, you can't do any one of these things on their own. You have to do them all, right?
Yeah.
So you can spend, however much money you want on advertising on Google if that's what you want to do. But if you don't have the other components in place, you're going to lose your money.
Yeah.
If you drive around and you look like you're still in the trades, you will be treated like you're still in the trades. But you don't want to be treated like you're in the trades. You want to be treated like you're the advisor, the trusted advisor type thing. So, I talk to guys about the fact that they have to be competent in all these things. And I often have a conversation with them about, so what does your website look like? Well, I don't have one yet. Well, how are you going to do this then? And I'll have an honest conversation,
Yeah.
respectful conversation with them. Um, but they struggle on some of the basics. They've got to be entrepreneurs and then not necessarily entrepreneurial,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that's a good point. I came from the franchise world.
Yeah.
I worked for a franchisor and sold a lot of franchises through the years, and every franchise that's ever sat in my office, I've always told them the same thing. I said nobody is driving down the road and sees your sign and go, "Huh, I think I want an inspection today."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's not like it's and I'll pick Dairy Queen with the kiss. No,
Yeah.
oh, I think I want ice cream.
Yeah.
It's if and you said it perfectly. If you're gonna do Google, which is the big dog, if you
Hmm.
don't have a website that Google drives them to, why spend the money? And if you're
Hmm.
gonna have pay per click and you don't have this in place, and you're right, if you don't have everything in line, you
Everything.
have nothing in line.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just figuring out how to lose money in every way there is. And I don't mean just on Google, I mean literally sitting at home, losing money and,
Yeah,
and so forth.
yeah,
Um, you gotta be able, you have to be entrepreneurial. And so many people don't put in the time and the effort
yeah,
to figure out all those other skills. They'll take every class there is on CCPIA and figure that out, but they won't take any of the classes or go find the answers to the questions on the other side of the business, the business of the business.
yeah.
And
They'll have
and
the sharpest spear, the sharpest knife, but they
yeah,
won't have they won't have the skill set to go out and hunt.
right. Yeah,
And
no
I
idea.
I had a slide years ago, Ian. It made me my ADHD was popping in. I had a slide years ago that I'd show in my first day of franchise class that said, "So here's the history of the inspection business. Build a company, make a business card, sit at home, wait for the phone to ring, and get a job at Home Depot.
Hmm. Yeah,
Is
that's not wrong.
is if you don't engage, if you don't do it, if you don't have the total package. I love what you said at the very beginning. Everything I do is based on sales. How
Hmm.
you look, what you drive, what your tools look like, how I approach. And you just said a minute ago, if I look like a technician, then I am one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And if I want to get paid like a commercial inspector, and we won't talk about pricing, but if I want to get paid like a commercial inspector, which is a very fair pay
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
per job, then I want to look like a consultant.
Yeah, we'll take it even one step further. If you want to be paid, like again, the 80-20%,
Yeah.
right? If you want to be paid like you're in the top 20% of commercial inspectors, then you need to basically look, act, and perform like you are in that
Yes.
20%.
Yes.
Nobody's going to pay you for something that they don't think you are, right? So yeah, it is. It's absolutely everything. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. So I'm trying to go through and in my mind think about what we haven't talked about because this has just been eye opening on I mean I love the ideas, Ian, of having multiple options for your clients.
Hmm.
You can run a commercial inspection company with 80, 85, 90% successes by
Yeah.
just having a good solid attitude. Um, are you using proposals on most of your jobs, or are these mostly all phone quotes, Ian?
No, I will always do a written one pager,
Right.
and it's a canned thing for me. I just go out and change out very small amount of information and so forth. But I will never try to close on a phone.
Good.
Never.
Good.
No. So again, going back to my sales type world and stuff like that, no, that's not a thing. So no, I want to make sure that they have the information, and quite often, as on the commercial projects, there's more than one person involved in making the decision. It's not necessarily the person that's on the phone with you, and you can go through the well, we can go to being the salesperson, um, which is terrible. Um, you know, I want to talk to the decision maker. Who's the decision maker? You can go through all of that, but what I do is put it down on paper. It becomes somewhat of my sales piece is that piece of paper.
Yep.
And I even point them to the option that most people choose. Why? Because that's the option I want them to choose.
Yeah.
And most people then choose that option. But even if they take the lowest option based upon the amount of time it will take me to perform that option, it's still a winner for me.
Yeah.
And so, and when what I find has happened is that when I think when people would compare, they if somebody was looking to book a commercial inspection and they would go online or whatever and basically find or go to CCPIA website, and then they're just scrolling through whatever names they have nothing other to compare anybody to other than on price.
Yes.
They have nothing else. And so, a lot of the time when I went through that moment there where I was losing them, I was losing on price, because as things started to, more people got into this side of the business, I would start to lose on price. So I don't lose on price anymore, because people would tell me, "Well, I really like you. I like your approach and everything, but can you come down to this?" And I'm like, "No, I can't, because one, my schedule is going to be full no matter what. So I'm either going to take this well-paying job, or I'm going to take this well-paying job." So so I don't lose on price anymore, because even if they don't want what somebody else was quoting them for a full inspection, they don't necessarily need the full inspection. They will come down and pay, whatever fits their budget, and take the inspection that meets up with that. And so it's been working well. But again, that's just nothing more than another piece of the sales, you know,
Uh, so,
model.
so what you're saying in kind of a roundabout summary way is you have to use all the tools at your disposal.
Yeah,
and
everyone.
and you have to have the mindset of a winner
Yeah.
to.
You, yeah. Yes, right. You have to be head down, push through. And like my wife says, well, you're absolutely the most disciplined person and the most tenacious person. I don't know any other way because there is nobody's giving me a safety blanket, just like I'm sure they're not giving many people, a safety blanket. So I'm in charge of where I end up, period. So I have to find the answers to stuff. One of the things when I'm on the mentoring calls, I find a number of people are still they're looking for somebody to give them all of the answers, and I mean every answer. And it's like, okay, you have to actually start to turn the head on and come up with the answers. When I was building my website, I'm not a website designer, but I had to go and find out, learn enough to know whether or not somebody was going to do something correctly or it was going to do what I needed it to do or not. I had to go out and learn how to manage pay-per-click
Mhm.
because I didn't have the money and wasn't going to pay somebody else just to spend my money.
Yeah,
So you have to become expert enough in absolutely everything to know whether or not somebody is treating you correctly or doing something correctly or not.
I
So
couldn't
yeah.
agree more. I mean, that my transition from residential to commercial was a master class of
Yeah.
having to learn everything. Because
Yeah.
on the residential side, it's the household name. Everybody knows it. Everybody has it. It's an 80-90% client pool of
Mhm.
transactions, get inspections, done. And now
Yeah.
we're inventing an entire new industry in the commercial side. And so if you don't embrace that and you just want to be a technician, then you're not going to be an entrepreneur, and I don't think you're going to be successful.
No, but if you just want to be a technician, right? We're not all born to be business owners.
Mhm.
And some of us, we are great employees, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to know where you best fit. You have to know where you best fit. And in some of the phone calls that I have with people, I think there are some people that literally will be figuring this out while they're on the phone with me. I mean, I'll spend an hour on the phone with them as I'm driving around and so forth. And they will come to their own realization because they'll ask me, well, what do you think I should do? I said, well, you know you better than I do.
Yeah.
What do you think you should do? And then, some of them are literally you
Poof.
know, yeah, maybe it's not as, maybe I
Well,
should go and
well,
work
well,
for somebody.
that's an interesting point, Ian, because when you think about commercial, there's so much geographical opportunity to be a 1099 technician
Yeah,
for
yeah,
a few dozen different commercial inspector entrepreneurs.
yeah,
I know you work alone. I know you
yeah.
don't have staff, but I would imagine if you had a big building in Kalamazoo for Kellogg,
Hmm.
or Battle Creek, I should say, for Kellogg, you would need some help. You
Yeah,
It would be good for you to have a pool and say,
yeah. But guess what? We have that pool, don't we?
yes, we do.
Through CCPIA,
Find
right?
an
I
inspector. Here
know
we go.
I know. Yeah, if I needed an inspector, I know people that I can call across the country
Yes,
and say, hey, can you come and help me out with this?
yes.
And it'll be like, yes, count me in, I'm there.
Yep, I have.
So,
We have a project coming up, a field training in Arizona, and it's got a large precast concrete
yeah,
parking structure.
yeah,
And I went right to my Rolodex. I have a deer inspection friend of mine who erected them for a couple decades.
yeah,
I'm going to bring him in and let him lead that portion of the class
yeah,
because he's an expert.
yeah, yeah. So when it comes to, so I work on my own. I love that. And people keep saying, well, you should take somebody on. My schedule's always, or typically 90 something percent, it is full out the window. And so they're like, well, you should take somebody on. Well, I've done the numbers and I know what it would take and it would change my life. And I've already been there, done that. And I don't need to because life is fantastic as it is. But in the event, for instance, you go into a commercial project and you need somebody, um, it's the easiest thing, for on a precast concrete building, for instance. It was a large, like 400,000 square foot commercial building. It was less than 12 months old, and the owner had basically gone online and read all kinds of horror stories about precast concrete buildings failing and so forth. And so now he was paranoid because there were hairline cracks turning up everywhere and stuff. So he wanted a structural steel inspection or evaluation as part of everything. Well, of course, I'm not a structural steel, you know, guy. So you get out your phone book or whatever, or you search, you go online, you start to research and find something. So of course, then I had a welding instructor that did all and he was in the field as well, had been for like 30 years. And of course, you just portion that out. You just 1099 them out
Yeah.
to go take care of that. So I don't need to hire people as employees or anything. Nobody else does either, but depending on your business model. But there are so many people available, you just go fill that. So there's no waiting till, oh, I have to build this just in case somebody calls me because they're going to need this. No, 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 no.
Mm.
You go out and build your sales model so that you actually, when that phone rings and they ask you, the answer is yes, and then you go figure out how to solve that with a professional,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that works.
We use that big thinking meat as much as we can.
Yeah, try to.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
thank you for your time today, Ian. I know you said 90+%. This has taken us a little while to schedule because you are swamped. You're also a
yeah.
newlywed, but
Oh yeah,
so that takes up your time too.
yeah.
But
Been with her
but
for a very long time, but we just decided to get married last year. Yeah,
but
yeah,
you are swamped, and so I do appreciate this. You don't know how much. Um, for all of you members that are or even prospective members know that Ian is on our mentor list. You can find that on our website. He just said he loves talking to you and helping, and so thank you for helping me.
no, no, no. It's the other way around.
No,
It's
no,
absolutely the
no.
other way around.
Nope.
No,
I enjoy every conversation we've ever had, and thank you for taking the time this morning, and I look forward to watching and hearing about your successes and everything you're doing in the world of commercial inspections.
yeah, I appreciate it, but you're absolutely a rock, both to this organization, and you just make it simple. I'll put it that way.
Ah,
You make it real simple.
you're too kind, Ian. Uh,
So, no, it's earned.
yep. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
and
mate.
stay safe, and remember to follow the ComSop when you're out there.
All right. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.